that he doesn't want to get top heavy. So he plays at times with a very careful elbow. What I mean by that is, most of the time when their delivery blows, they're leaving a slight elbow bend position for recovery's sake. If they extend their elbow, they're what? They're frontally heavy, they're heavy, and if they all lead with a head forward and they have a helmet and shoulder pads on, they become real frontal heavy. That means if I move him, he falls off to the side. These guys are taught at a very young age to keep the head over the shoulders over the hips, and you know what? Maintain that upright posture with the taps. Because the worst thing you can do is lunge, and I can sweep by and beat him easily. All right? So that being said, I would also like to see that elbow, if at all possible. If we have to choose one over the other, I've said this already before, I'd rather have the elbow be able to what? You put in a little, what are those called?
It's a kind of like a ratchet nut, like on a flagpole.
That is sunk, embedded in the rubber, so it's still padded over it, but it just loosens, boom, locks. Almost like my son's drum set. When he almost can move the legs and then lock and take the key out, and you don't even see the what? The nut. You don't even see it. And we can still have that. So the shoulder itself, the last word of this, the shoulder itself, I'm not worried about, because the person who controls the stick can really end up being the shoulder. All right? So my main concern is if we can lock that elbow, and if we have that ability, then we can do this also. One other thing, when mentioned the other day on the computer about a spring, I don't mind a spring, but it needs to be a spring that's very stiff, because I don't want a lot of boing all over. Because if you look at this gentleman and he's throwing a punch, and I move it away, he will recover this way. He won't recover necessarily back like the spring. So I'm a little bit concerned about how the spring reacts, and if we set the spring initially in the pole, in the middle, then the limb will be straight, unless there's some way to set it this way. All right? I'm still open, guys, to looking at how we might be able to do that. All right? So those are the two things I wanted to mention about the joints and the lockdown, if at all possible. And then if you look at his arm, there's not a lot of beef on there. Nothing against him, there's not a lot of beef on mine. I don't want a big pad. I want something that when I make contact, I get feedback to my brain as well as he wants. He gets feedback and it moves further. Alright, so those being said, I want this to be tight, and I would love to have it look like an arm. Alright, it doesn't have to be that color, it doesn't have to have hair on it. I love to have that arm be what? Real looking. Alright, so we can set it a lot of different ways. Alright, now, if this has been my arm that I've been using with players and coaches, I'm going to have you hold it, just like this. Just like that, right? I'm going to have you hold it. If this is the arm I've been using,
Blades, you can move back to the center of the circle so I can't get you all in. There, good.
If this is the arm I've been using, obviously you see the limitations. Limitations, there's no bend to it. This is better than nothing. And I think the value of the piece, to both of you guys that are listening to this, the value of the piece, keeping guys running the Home Depot will come with that wrist and that elbow being able to be adjusted. That, I think, will more likely sell the piece. My worry is, if it is stiff straight, they'll run to Home Depot and buy it. Just like me and say, well, I might as well just use a stick and save a couple $100. So, and the shape of the arm, and the texture, all these things I think will mean something. So we're going to have to work on that. Anyway, there are a number, too many to go over tonight, but there is a number of ways to attack this arm. A number of different combinations of movements. First of all, just for the sake of you getting a little more understanding, when you get a little more understanding, I number or designate weapons to train that are on the human body. The hand is a weapon, the forearm is a weapon, the upper arm is a weapon, the shoulder is a weapon. For the sake of simple demonstration tonight, how am I going to use this arm? I'm going to use it in a way where the force is applied to me as if from there, like apply a chest to my chest. When force is applied, I need to reroute that force. So by using this arm, this combat arm, a couple of things happen. I can apply force, and as the coach, he can stay out of harm's way. Right? You stay out of harm's way, and with something that is like an arm, I can get the feedback necessary when I drop this, and I'm going to just him doing it. All right, there's going to be a point where he says, I ain't doing this anymore, man. And he's also going to understand that there's some accuracy that leads to pain. And this makes the coach very wary. He's a coach. Like some of these football coaches are. And he's 50, 60, 30 years old, 100 pounds overweight, ha ha ha. He doesn't want to get involved with a drill. He just wants to He just wants to point and say, do this. So we need to give him a way to let the athlete go full speed, but also let him control the drill without getting in harm's way. Okay, he applies a punch, and I keep doing this 100 reps a day. He's going to feel this after a while. He's going to feel it, and then before you know it, players can do it with players, and they will. But the problem is, even players say, I ain't doing it anymore, man. And then they start cheating. It happens. And then he's sloppy because, hey, man, we're brothers. Let's not beat each other up. So that's why the stick, the combat arm, is so effective. It can apply a force. We can practice at full speed the combination. So he applies force, and I'm just simply working the movements. And by working the movements, he can He can feel it through the stick when I do it right. A lot of guys, when they first start out with a stick, they use their fingertips, and they miss, or it doesn't do anything. If you see, we train the weapons the right way, and the carryover to the field is unbelievably effective, efficient. So we start to train these different weapons in a combination of ways. We start out slow, 1, 2. We start to throw it back, now punch a little harder, boom, boom, a little bit harder, and we learn to do these combinations. All right, and he can vary the speed of the weapon into me, he can vary the angle of the weapon, and then eventually we get into recovery. Recovery might be, I sweep, he replaces, I block back. So it might be boom, boom. It might be again, do. And that way we work combinations. Again, creatures that happen we have all over the football field. In most cases, I tap, he replaces. We have to learn to deal with both sides. And we have to deal with it in such a way that it's right, without the coach and the player being like, I'm not doing this. And with the precision of a real warrior, real soldier. Alright? So we can here, and keep on working these combinations against each other, but this gives us the ability to work a lot of different angles. We can move it out to the side, stay right here, face me, just point it out to the side. Because an offensive lineman, for example, is not allowed to give away the inside, a lot of times the arm is extended outside of the framework of his body. Now I can work my near arm to him in a way that creates a movement. So now I can kind of my stance, come off the ball, bam, I can do movements with my limbs in such a way that creates an efficient athlete, because that's what he'll see. Now the coach can also work the replacement of this move. This replacement will be over the top, under, pull over. So now we can work we can work here, here. We can work here, here. We can work a million different combinations. And that leads to an athlete becoming very effective on the football field. So we have side movements, we have frontal movements over one arm, or we could combine, drop that one. We could combine, watch how I hold these, watch this. Even them up. And why are they so long? So the coach stays out of harm's way. or we can what? We can work doubles. And all I do is wrap my arms around the pole that comes out the back of the arm, and I can work movement. So if you hold these for me, all right, I like to wrap around, all right? And all we do here, and you can put them a little closer to your body so you have a little more control, all right? Imagine this being a limb. That's about the length of the limb, extending. I can work the inside movements, or if they're a little higher, all right, a little higher, the outside movements. I work outside, inside, edge movements, from up to down to up, and he can what? Work at replacing. Try a few so we can show people how we hold. Hold like this, or we can hold like that. The closer we get to the end, the more control we have. I figure right about here is where we're going to end up being. That's why the counterweight of this is very important. All top heavy, that won't be good. So double down for me. All right? Double up for me. All right, now I can do that replacement drill where what? He will respond to this, and now he's working that combination. He can sweep one way, all right, or sweep the other, and there's a million different drills I can show you. But this is how we use the steps. Sometimes when I use a step, the player, the athlete, gets a little reluctant to hit the step because it is hard. You do end up getting what? Bruises or a little numbness because of nerves that are in your arm. But if we layer this with a compression type foam or a nice tight pad, they have a little protection so the athlete won't get hurt. But yeah, okay, they've got the realistic feel of doing it the right way. Okay, hold this for me. Hold it the way you feel most comfortable, which is fine, all right? So I can work the outside edge moves. I can work the front up the tap moves. And what we eventually end up doing, Aman, Stefan, if you develop the shield, all right, is we follow up because usually force being applied and deflected will lead to what? An adjustment, just like a wrestler. If you shoot, the man sprawls. There's a reaction. If he's shooting at my chest and I open him up, the next thing he does is recover or replace. During that moment, he's in a soft set. That means we can attack. By having that shield there, imagine if it's hanging over his shoulders, boom, we can We can make some nice hits. Okay, a lot of noise there, but it didn't hurt. Why? Because it was more of a cup hit. All right, but imagine if we really could drive through it. Okay, with a shield, it's possible. A lot of times what I'm doing right now is I'm doing these moves. I'm just doing them on air so that the player has a chance to understand what the counter moves are. So one leads to another. What Michigan State did was take this to a new level where they started to build this drill into what they were doing, and they're the top 10 defense in the country. And they're up front 4, at least 2 of them will be drafted in the NFL. The fact of the matter is, when you're just using these limbs, these combat arms, like in a real arm, if we can add a little texture, a little joint flexion, movement, adjustment, I think it'll be a tool that every coach in America will consider. So, Ken, you can try a few yourself. And watch how we do it. Let's try one with my man here. He's never done this. But let's say, for the sake of it, let's get on this side. Okay, there's going to be accompanying support so that coaches have how to run a series.